welcome to another edition of the Pace Report. I'm Brian Pace, reporting live here at the House of Swing, Jazz and Lincoln Center here in the heart of New York City. As you know, here on the Pace Report, I always keep my eyes and ears on the pulse of what the next generation of musicians are bringing to Black American music. And tonight I'm honored to profile a drummer, composer, and band leader who hails from Compton, California by the name of Brandon Sanders. Now, tonight here on the Pace Report, you're going to see highlights of Brandon Sanders performing music from his current album, Lasting Impression, which is on Savant Records. And this gentleman has done incredibly well both here and abroad, as well as he's incorporated some of the rudiments of basic jazz music, including some of the elders that he's channeling off of, including the great Elvin Jones and Art Blakey. But what's very unique about Brandon and his recordings is that every record he includes guest vocalists. And on this current record, Lasting Impression, you have the great Jazzmeia Horn, who performs on 2 songs. Tonight, you're going to see highlights of his performance here at Dizzy's, as well as the Jazz Club here in New York City. And I had a chance to sit down and break bread with Brandon and one to reflect on some of his musical influences, as well as talk about the components of leading his own band. Also, we sit down and reflect on him growing up in Compton, California, as well as talk about why it's very important to lead his own band, as well as bring contemporary music of his generation to jazz fans, both young and old. So sit back, relax, enjoy highlights of Mr. Brandon Sanders and his official New York record release performance from his album, Lasting Impression, here on the Pace Report, here at Dizzy's and the Jazz Club, here in New York City. Lasting Impressions.
Yes.
Your third record. Tell me about the stepping stone. How did we get here? Because this album is originals and some standards.
Yeah.
How did we get here?
Well, you know, first record was Compton's Finest, and I was just trying to basically say that, you know, there are some people, many people from Compton that are doing great things. I was trying to promote, you know, most people when they think of Compton, they think of negativity. But there's some great people I found, grew up around doctors and lawyers and educators. So I was just trying to say, hey, you know, Compton's Finest, there are some fine people there. And then with The Tables Will Turn, it was a message basically saying that if you put your mind to it and you stick with it, you know, I started playing drums at 25. So the message was, if you stick with it, you know, the tables will turn eventually. And with Lasting Impression, you know, I'm just basically saying that when I play, I want to leave the impression that, hey, this brother is about doing something positive with the music. You know, he's trying to make his statement, make a mark. So that's how we wind up.
You know, you pay homage to a gentleman who came from LA, Mr. Bobby Hutcherson. You do 8/4 beat, and you have some fantastic members of this group. You've got Eric Wheeler, Warren Wolf, Stacy Dillard, Eric Reed, another
California.
Kelly, yes.
And Willie Jones.
And Willie Jones, right.
The producer.
The producer, right. So, tell me about the Bobby Hutcherson connection.
Well, you know, if you notice, like, every album that I've done thus far, there's like a kind of West Coast theme, either with the photo shoot or with the music. So Bobby Hutcherson was from LA. And so I was just trying to basically highlight his music and his contributions to jazz. You know, a lot of people, they don't think of the West Coast being a jazz spot. So I was just like, look, well, Bobby Hutcherson was from LA, and he wrote some great music. So that's why we did the 8/4 beat. And plus Warren Wolf, you know, being a vibraphonist, he kind of, you know, he plays great on it too. So I just wanted to highlight him.
How did you meet Warren?
I met Warren at Berklee College Music about in the year 2000, 99, 2000, and I was a student there. I had just got to Berklee, and one day he heard me play, and he needed a drummer that night. And I was like, man, Warren, I don't think that I'm ready to be playing with. I think on that gig was Walter Smith, who, you know, I don't know if you know Walter Smith. So I was like, man, I don't want to play with y'all. Y'all too advanced for me. And he was like, man, the only way you're going to get ready is to get out there and do it. So that's how I wound up meeting Warren Wolf. Yeah.
You know, Warren has had a wonderful presence in jazz, as well as an educator, as well as a family man, a devout family man at that.
Yes.
And seeing you guys come up together and seeing where you guys are now, did you guys like 20 years ago think that you guys would be at this point in your career?
He might have, but I didn't, because, you know, once I finished Berklee, I thought I was just going to go back into doing social work full time and just, you know, play drums on the side. But he kept encouraging me to do an album, and I was like, man, I'm good where I'm at. He said, nah, man, you need to record yourself. And so that's how my first album came about, by him pushing me to record. And
it's crazy because your success, I mean, you're so humble, brother. You are very humble, Brandon. I mean, your first record, when it came out, I remember Barney gave me a copy. I was like, you gotta check this guy. He's from LA. And I'm listening to this. I'm like, dude, You sound like you've been playing for 40, 50 years, man. And then the word of mouth, and then radio took, and then the second record, radio really kind of pushed it in. Now, you number 3 right now with this new record, man.
Right.
How do you feel about all of this press with word of mouth?
I mean, for me, you know, the old saying is, you know, to whom much is given, much is required. So when they just did an article on us in Downbeat magazine. So when I saw that, it just pushes me to practice more, keep working, writing more music, trying to take the music to a higher level. So for me, you know, you have to stay humble because you got the masters like John Coltrane and Miles Davis, all these people that, you know, I'm still a student of the music, so I can't be like, you know, having a big head or anything like that. So it just pushes me to work harder. Like I started studying with someone so I could, you know, be more proficient and learning how to write and compose. So yeah.
How did drumming come into your psyche?
It's weird. It's funny because I never thought I would be playing the drums. There was some drums at a church in college that I was going when I was at college school, and I was at church one day, and these drums were sitting in the corner, and I was just trying to figure out how to do it, play them. And a guy showed me some basic rhythms, and then I was like, okay, I'm gonna try to do this, and I started practicing every day. Yeah.
Now, drums wasn't your first choice, though.
No, not at all. Matter of fact, my grandmother bought me a guitar when I was 12, because I was into, I was a big fan of Chuck Berry and B.B. King, and so I wanted to be the next B.B. King, and I just didn't have the discipline at 12 at that time. And then my grandmother bought me a saxophone, and because I was a big fan of Stanley Turrentine, and then that didn't work. And then like 4 or 5 years later, some drums were at church, and I was like, let me figure this out, and then I just stuck with that.
How did you get into jazz, other than Stanley Turrentine?
Well, my grandmother owned a jazz club, and she used to tell me all these stories about all the famous jazz musicians like Turrentine and Lou Donaldson that played at her club. Plus, my dad had he had a huge record collection, so I would just use like I would be scratching the records. Like I remember he had the record called Sugar by Turrentine, and I'd be in there scratching the records. You know what I mean? I said, boy, give me them records back. So that's how I got into jazz without knowing that I was going to wind up being a jazz musician.
Now you went to college, didn't major in music.
No, not at all.
And you play basketball, but were musically inclined. But how did college stop you and refocus and regroup on you playing music?
Well, so I was a walk-on practice player for the University of Kansas. So that meant I practiced with the squad and did all that kind of stuff. So I was playing basketball before I got into playing music. So when my eligibility was up, in come these drums at the church, I was like trying to figure out what I was going to do. And once that happened, that kind of shifted my focus. I was working for the Boys and Girls Club in Kansas City, and they had a big layoff. And I said, well, man, maybe this is a time for me to go to music school. So I applied to Berklee. I was studying with a guy, two teachers at the time. One's named Todd Strait, who used to play with Mary Portland. And then there was another guy, John Kashan, who used to be he was the husband of Oleta Adams. And so I was studying with both of them, at different periods of time during that time. And I applied for Berklee College of Music, and then I got in, and that's how the rest of that happened.
Tell me some of the jazz drummers that you got into and segued into, and some of your influences.
Well, during that time, I was a huge fan of Art Blakey, huge fan of Philly Joe Jones, and I was a huge fan. I loved Kenny Washington. Yeah, at that time, because there was an album that came out in the early 90s called The Jazz Poet with Kenny Washington and George Mraz and Tommy Flanagan. And so that record, turned me on to his playing. So those were like some of my favorites during that time that I was like, then of course, I became good friends with Lewis Nash, and Lewis kind of took me under his wing, and we still talk. He just texted me the other day And so we talk very much, at least once or twice a month.
What did Lewis do for you as a musician, and how did he show you to look at music and compositions differently?
Well, Lewis, first of all, when I moved to New York, I didn't have a place to stay. I called him one day and I was like, man, you know, my lease is up in Boston and I don't have anywhere to go. And he said, well, man, I got an apartment here in Harlem that you could stay in till you get on your feet. And I said, well, man, all I need is like 2 months at max. And he said, yeah. So I came, moved in, and I got a job as a social worker, and I started working. Then I moved out and moved to the Bronx. But his, you know, playing the drums, he would always tell me to think of the melody, like be melodic, you know, incorporate the tune into your playing, know the tune. And then I studied with Lewis for about a year, and you know, we talked about how to play the brushes and how to play it behind the soloist and how to accompany someone. I mean, he's a master of all styles, you know, so that's what I was impressed by, and I would always ask him questions about, you know, how do you play this different rhythm or something.
You're still a counselor.
Yes.
You're still doing social work and you're doing this.
Yes.
What is it that you are finding the most difficult and the easiest leading your own band?
Well, you know, some people try to be a dictator. I'm more of a facilitator, and more of like if you got somebody like Stacy Dillard and Eric Wheeler and Warren Wolf, and you're just trying to bring out what they do well. And so I just say, hey, you know, let's play these tunes, let's play these tunes. And they're like, okay, let's do that. Instead of saying, we gonna do this, we gonna do that. I'd rather just say, hey, what do you guys think? Because to me, I'm still a baby at this. They've been playing all their lives, you know. Eric Wheeler, you know, Warren Wolf, they've been doing this longer than me, in my opinion. So I just try to say, okay, why don't we do this? You know, I've said before in interviews that I approach music like a DJ. You know, so when you come to our show, you know, I'm trying to start to take the audience from here to there. You know what I mean? So that's how every tune is kind of like got a flow. You know, so it's not like a jam session vibe. It's a, you know, performance. You know, so that's how I approach it. And I try to bring out the best in each music, their talents. Like tonight we played with William Hill. That was my first time playing with him. So I try to go play tunes that I think that he can excel on. You know?
He did well tonight, man.
yeah.
Both sets. I mean, and then the maturity that he has.
Right.
You know, his maturity. I was looking at him. He's a very old soul.
Yes.
You know, he's coming from some serious elders.
Right.
every record you have a vocalist.
Yes.
A guest.
Yes.
This album, we have the dynamic Jazzmeia Horn.
Yes.
Jazzmeia lights up a room wherever she goes.
Yes.
She could be in a corner sitting on the side and you see her and she glows.
Right, right.
Why did you choose the song that you recorded for this project with her?
We did Till You Come Back, to Me, and Our Love Is Here to Stay. Well, she performs Our Love Is Here to Stay regularly on her set.
Right.
So I said, well, why don't we just document this in the studio? And then Until You Come Back to Me, that was one of my grandmother's favorite tunes.
Aretha Franklin.
Aretha Franklin. You know, Stevie Wonder actually wrote the tune. And I was just trying to capture that. And she agreed to do it. And so, yeah, she did a good job, I thought.
Why do you have vocalists on your records?
Because, okay, like for me, you know, most people that you play for, like, they want to hear the you know, growing up where I come from, most people want to hear the lyrics. So I figure, like, to that population of people, like, I have a tune on there that'll draw you in. You know, oh, he's got Michael Jackson, he's singing Can't Help It, or he's got Human Nature. It gets people to listen. I'm trying to bring in people that don't necessarily listen to jazz, and they say, oh, well, you know, he's got some blues on here, but you know, just get them to listen. Yeah. But I always, you know, that's just me. I always have a vocalist, and I always try to pick out vocalists that people, you know, they're either up and coming or they right there, and they, you know, like Jazzmeia, I met her back in 2010. Now look at her career.
She's everywhere.
Yeah, and same thing with Christy Duchelle. She's been nominated for a Grammy twice.
Brandon Sanders, this is the last question that I ask everybody.
Right.
What does Black American music mean to you?
You know, Black American music to me means that, you know, it's basically like saved my life, you know, in the sense that it's got me through some tough times. It's got me through some great times. I believe that without it, I don't know what I would do. That's what it means to me. You know, it's like I listen to Black American music every day. Like one of the albums that I've been listening to that's so hip is Illmatic by Nas.
It's one of the greatest rap albums, probably top 5 of all time.
I listen to that record every day. That's like, nobody knows that now, everybody knows, but I listen to that album every day, like clockwork, every day. It's just something about that album, but it just touches me, and you know, it just touches me, and that's what Black American music does.
What did Illmatic do to you, man? I mean, that record is just as relevant now that it did over almost 30 years ago.
Well, you know, for me being a fan of Nas, it takes me into his world. You know, you start wanting to know about Queensbridge. You know, and growing up in LA, we were like fascinated by all that. Like, you know, where's Queensbridge? You know, we were fascinated. So it takes me into his world, and his lyrics, you know, is just like so hip, and so like how he puts words together, you know, it's just like crazy. Like I can listen to that album. I listen to it lately every day. Like I'll play It Ain't Hard to Tell.
That's the closing track of the album.
Yeah, but I listened to that first, and then I started over. Then I go to New York State of Mind. And then one time, so my son, I take my son to school every day. And he likes New York State of Mind, but I was listening to Life's a Bitch.
Yeah, then you die.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because AZ is just
criminally underrated, man.
Yeah.
And you know, to piggyback on what you just said, I just saw an interview with Nas, and he says that he and AZ, they're just gonna have to block a day, days, and because this AZ and Nas record collab should have happened 35 years ago, 25 years ago, and now I think people see the relevance of why they want to see him.
Man, that track, I can play that. There was a time before I even sometimes, man, before I even get to Nas's verse, I'll repeat AZ's verse over and over and over and over, because he says, and this is why Black American music touches me, because he says, when I think about all the people that I grew up with in Compton and all the cats that I knew who had dreams and got shot or in jail or something, they didn't make it. He says, I'm destined to live the dream for those who didn't make it. And that's like so inspiring to me, because that's what I'm trying to do. Because I got cats that I know, like that. I got a friend of mine, we call him Dutch, and you know, he's a great guy, he's still living, but I'm living my dream for him, because he basically helped me stay out of trouble, you know, and so that's what I listen to that track over and over when he says, I'm destined, we turn to sinners, and and he said, I'm destined to live the dream, and to those who never make it, that's how I feel. You know, I'm trying to live the dream to those that didn't make it.
That'll do it again for another edition of the Pace Report, reporting live here at the House of Swing, Jazz and Lincoln Center, here in the heart of Columbus Circle here in New York City. I'd like to personally thank the incomparable Brandon Sanders for his time. Make sure you support his current Savant Records release, Lasting Impression, which is now available on iTunes, Amazon.com, and Spotify. Also, make sure you check them out every Sunday at the Row House in Harlem. Also, follow them on social media by way of Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Also, I'd like to personally thank the staff and management here at Dizzy's and Jazz at Lincoln Center for their warm hospitality, as well as the Jazz Club. As always, people, I can't stress this more than enough. Please like, share, and subscribe to my videos and leave comments. Until next time, remember, if it's in the groove, it'll make you move. Till next time, peace.